Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Social Chat 2.0 with Semrush and me, your host, Rebecca Radice. Now, today we're talking about product launches and how you can use social media to get your product, your service in front of a whole lot more people. I am joined by a very illustrious group of experts. But before I introduce all of them to you, we would love to hear from you and your struggles as far as product launches. So tell me in the comments below, what is the biggest struggle for you when it comes to a launch? Use one if it's the planning phase, so kind of the strategy aspect, and two, if it's the execution. So actually following through, getting everything done, and then getting that launch out into the world. We're going to talk about all of that and so much more because every single person that's here with us today has launched multiple different products out into the world, and in fact, even books as well, which, as we know, products little bit different animal, but all very similar in all of those moving pieces. So first of all, I am going to start with you. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. So honored to be here.
We are thrilled to death to have you. So just real quick, for those of you that are joining us here today that don't know Dr. Addison-Zhang, she is an educator and an entrepreneur. She received her MA and PhD in communication with Syracuse University and the University of Maryland. She is the founder of Classroom Without Walls and coaches education professionals to leverage social media to build powerful brands and communities. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. I can't wait to get started.
Well, we have a lot to learn from you, as everybody is going to quickly learn just as well. Jessica, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you? I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I am fantastic. And so, just a little bit about Jessica. And I'm just so excited about this panel because you all complement each other so well in everything that you do, just your thought process, methodology, how you're running things within your business. And Jessica, we've known each other for quite some time. So impressed with all that you do as a social media strategist. Jessica also founded Now Marketing Group in 2010. And is it true that you only launched your business with a laptop and that was pretty much it?
Yes, that was it.
And a vision and a dream, huh? And a girl.
That's how the story goes.
Well, today the company is a Forbes recognized agency partner and a certified inbound partner with HubSpot. Now Marketing Group works with more than 100 clients across the United States and beyond, choosing to serve, not sell. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for having me here.
You bet. Thank you. And Leonard Kim, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, this is the first time we've actually had the chance to get face-to-face.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, video. So thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Oh, anytime. It's a pleasure to be here. Happy to be here with you guys.
Now, for those of you that don't know Leonard, so Leonard Kim, I could go on and on with all three of these panelists, but Leonard is recognized as a top marketer and personal branding expert by countless publications. Plus, he's getting ready. I'm very excited about this, to launch his new book with co-author Ryan Foland. It's called Ditch the Act, Reveal the Surprising Power of the Real You for Greater Success. Leonard, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Ryan wanted to be here today too. He just couldn't make it. So I'm in his place.
Yeah, that's right. We are happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
All right, so we're going to jump right in. And to everybody that is here with us live, just keep in mind this is a very interactive show. So as you have any questions, any comments, any feedback, anything you want us to dig a little bit deeper into, make sure you use those comments and let us know. We will be keeping a close eye out for those and then answering those throughout. So I am going to shift back over to you, and we're going to start with you and kind of start from a high level. So, as we know, pulling together, and we were kind of joking about this just before we went live, pulling together a successful product launch is not easy. There's a lot of work, and knowing where to begin can be pretty tough. Talk to us about your launches and what that ideation really looks like. What's your first step?
Yes, absolutely. We were just talking about this before the chat. There is a process. And for me, and I kind of have a system. And first, you need to know your audience. You absolutely want to have 100% clarity on who is your audience. What do they want? Why are they struggling? What are their pain points? The more you know them, the better you can serve them. The better you can serve them, and the more successful your launches are going to be. So first is always know your audience, and the second is to know yourself. What is your product? What services are you offering? And what is your brand message? And the more and you understand yourself, and the better you are going to be able to provide and to serve your audience what they are looking for. And the last one is to really understand the market. You want to do your research. You want to know other people doing similar things. What are they doing? How are you going to be different? And what is your unique point, and what makes you stand apart from the rest of the competition, from others? So know your audience, know yourself, and know your market. So those are kind of the three important points for anyone to get started and before they start the launch.
Well, and knowing who that audience is, as you said, makes it so much easier to tailor your content as well.
Absolutely. I can share a quick story. When I started my social media journey a few years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I was chasing shiny objects, and every time when there was something new, I was there, and my brand was now growing. I was not serving my audience, and the worst part is people were confused. They were like, what did you do? What was your service? And people were confused. I was confused. So there was no alignment between my audience, my service, and the market. I was just all over the place.
Yeah, and I would imagine that showed up in your sales and your interaction, your communication, and that's where we can feel very much out of alignment and that tug of war between our audience and ourselves. And so, you taking a step back, it sounds like really identified who is your audience, what are they looking for, and then did you come back at it with kind of a renewed message?
Yes, definitely. And I started with doing research and really making effort to get to know my audience, to really understand them and talk to them and listen to them and really understand that social media is not just about me or about whatever I'm selling and providing. It is only part of the picture. The bigger part of the picture is actually my audience. And I think marketers are problem solvers. And to solve the problem, we really need to understand our audience so that we can solve their problems.
Well, and I think that segues so nicely into Jessica. And Jessica, your focus of relationship marketing. And I'd love to hear your take on just every piece that I just talked about and how relationships fit into that, how they really play such an active role in the research that you're doing on the front end.
Absolutely. Yeah, she hit on a lot of the great points. So knowing your audience is foremost key because you have to understand what a day in their life looks like. So you know how to present your messaging so they understand you. What's going to resonate with them, who your competitors or perceived competitors are, who complement your industry, and that already has kind of that audience relationship buy-in with their tribe. So you can, collaborate with some people that already have that. And then also understanding the process that your audience is going to want to have to get to know know your product more. So it's one thing to market and build these relationships online, but like I said, they had no idea what I did, because there may not be like a clear path for them to start talking with you, get to know you, and then want to dive in more. So you really have to think through not only who's my audience, how do I want to connect with them on a meaningful level and get to know them? What pain point am I solving? So I'm not just pushing out a product, a service, a thing, but I'm pushing out a solution. And then once they get to me and they start building this know, like, and trust relationship with me, they can easily transition then into the sales process that is clearly identified online and thought about ahead of time. So what is that going to look like from somebody discovering me to then wanting to, buy from me, to then staying in touch with me ongoing, so they can ultimately do the biggest win, which is that word of mouth referrals and refer me on. So making sure that you've thought through that whole sales process and how you're going to maintain and develop and nurture the relationship with somebody long term.
Yeah, always looking down the road, right?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
anticipation of what is that next step? How do I continue to nurture that relationship? And Leonard, a word I think of as Jessica is talking about all of this is intrigue. How
Yeah.
have you used social media to really create intrigue around your product? I know you are doing so much with the launch of your book. Is there any one particular strategy that has worked best for you and Ryan?
Well, the big thing to really look at is social media really does jack when it comes to promoting anything, because what you really need to do beforehand is you need to build those relationships. You need to go out there and make friends. You need to go out there and build a community. I worked on a few different launches. The most successful was for a TV show. And in that TV show, the finalists, we sat down with them, me, Ryan, and our friend Justin Wu. We sat down with them. And then what we did is we laid out an entire game plan on how they could go out there and launch their campaign successfully. Some of the things that really come into that are, one, making sure there's enough time in advance to go out there and do the launch. You see so many companies out there, what they do is they launch the product immediately, and they put their campaign out there, and they're like, oh, no, it's a flop. And the reason is because they didn't really prepare beforehand. When it comes to the preparation and that one intriguing strategy, I don't think there's one overarching strategy that works best over the others. What we've found is the strongest way to really get the product launch going is, I guess, if you stream it down to one singular tactic, it's either a DM or talking to someone on a one-on-one basis and getting that one person to buy in. Because like I got like what, 600,000 followers. I could put out a tweet that says, hey, there's this book coming out, and then how many people care? Like 5, 3, 2, like maybe no one. But then if I go, hey, hey, I, since you're on this line with us today, I'm really going to ask you a favor. You know, we've been chatting for a while. We built this relationship over time. I guess you kind of want to chat with me and stuff. Can I ask you for a favor? I'm coming out with a book. Can you help me out with it? Like,
Yes.
that one-on-one interaction. Yay! That one-on-one interaction is really what works. And I think people go, okay, like if you think about social media, it's like a shotgun. And if you have a shotgun, you have these little pellets that fly out everywhere. And guess what? Pellets flying everywhere, they just miss everything. But if you're talking to someone one-on-one, there's that direct connection. It's like taking a sniper approach, and you just kind of make things happen.
Yeah, and I know that obviously resonated pretty strongly with you in just that targeted outreach. That is such a great takeaway. I don't think we can highlight that enough, Leonard, in how meaningful and memorable it is to do that one-on-one communication, to speak to what I call an audience of one instead of an audience of none, which to your point, you said you have 600,000 followers. How many of those people are going to care at that exact moment about your product or your launch? And so really paying attention and listening. And I'd love you to kind of speak to this part is, how do you stay that heavily involved and actively listening to really know who those people are to have those targeted conversations with?
Who's the question towards me?
Oh, or back to you,
I,
Leonard, if
I,
you'd like to
go
follow that
ahead.
up.
I
Go
know
ahead,
my
I.
name is so confusing. When people say I was like, me or I or me? Yes.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
I love this question. I also love how everyone is talking about cultivating deeper connections. I can see why we're here on this panel because we really share that central message. And so, to answer your question, Rebecca, I really think, and I recently had the great honor to interview Seth Godin. And one thing I learned from that interview is people like us do things like this. And we have to make an effort to find people like us. And I think when I start, I don't know if anyone in the audience or on the panel can relate to this. When I started my social media journey, I wanted to talk to every single person who is alive. And I wanted to sell my product or service to every single educator on planet Earth. And then I quickly discovered when I was trying to talk to everyone, I was serving nobody. And again, this goes back to the first point. There was no clarity. My message was so vague because I was trying to talk to everybody. So I think the better we can define our audience and be okay with serving a small group but targeted audience, knowing that those people who are like us, they are going to have a very strong buy-in. And once they truly buy in into our message, and they are going to go out and convert, so to speak, other people who are non-believers. But that is not our job as marketers who are trying to do product launches, but we need to find that core group of people. So that is kind of my answer. Yeah.
Well, and that leads us perfectly into a question we have from Blas, which is what would be the best and fastest way to create an audience without going into dark territories like buying leads and similar practices? Jessica? You have
Please don't buy the leads.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's
yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is a great question. And we get asked this a ton with the agency. And I tell you, like, it seems like a long game, what we're talking about, talking to one person, one-on-one, but I promise you, it has this ripple effect to truly, like, going back to I's point, knowing your audience, right? And knowing also then who they're following, who they're connecting with, who already has that community and that person that they trust, because people do not trust marketers. We are like the least trusted people on the planet, honestly. The above used car salesmen and ex-boyfriends and girlfriends. Like 80% is the study that consumers don't trust marketers. But what they do trust, and the most trusted source of leads, is word of mouth and word of mouth referrals. And that comes from already people having a connection and relationship with their audience. So the best thing that you can do is build these relationships with people that already have the community of people that are following them. So that's one key: collaborate. And I like to say it like this. So relationship marketing at its essence is turning those followers, like, Leonard was saying he has 600,000 followers, to fans, because there is a big difference. So how can you take some group of followers and can make real fans out of them by doing something like this one-on-one, bringing them into the conversation, having one-on-one dialogue with them, making them feel like a super fan, this VIP. And then you're also taking your current audience, your clients, and turning them into advocates. So how can you activate them in a way that's meaningful or go a little bit above and beyond with your experience that you're having, so they're sharing your message out? And then how can you take your community and turn them into collaborators with you? So those people that already have those audiences that are like-minded, you guys are serving a similar audience, like all of us here are in kind of this marketing world. We all have similar audience groups. So we're coming together and doing this panel. So think about that in your industry. So like one example, we worked with a real estate client, and they're working with home stagers and home inspectors, right? They all have the same audience. They're trying to help people buy and sell homes faster. And so they're coming together with them, and we collaborate on projects together on creating resources and videos and helpful content. And now this is going out into a community of others that are now trusting this source that it's coming from. So it's taking these micro moments, but having a bigger ripple effect by the simple impact of, the building it out from a relationship standpoint.
Yeah, really terrific points. And I think another big aspect of that is creating differentiation. If you want to attract the exact right audience, you've got to be able to separate not only your message, but your brand in the mind of that consumer. And Leonard, talk to us a little bit about how you're doing that. I watch you in amazement at how you scale conversation. It's crazy. I'm like, is there three of him? How does he make it happen? But you're doing a fantastic job at not only the conversation, but also the differentiation. How did you think through that in the early days of your product and your brand?
Well, so one of the things that me and Ryan did right before we launched the book is we made the book comes out in October, so we're still before the launch of the book, as we documented out a 28-page document that outlined every single thing that we would probably need for the launch of the book. That included updating bios, everything on our website, on our social media properties, the super simple stuff most people overlook, all the way to like what kind of content marketing we would be doing, to who we need to get buy-in for like quotes, advocacy, media, and other things like that. And we built out this huge list, and there's just so many different things on it. But right now, what phase we're in at this current moment is, well, the first thing we did is we read through the book again, because we created the product and we pushed each other so hard that we forgot all the features, benefits, and the key areas of it, because what the book is so much better than what we thought it would be. So we had to read it again to figure out what those core elements were. We extracted all that in the document, but at the same time, one of the things that we really wanted to do is we wanted to get buy-in and endorsements from other people. So one thing I did is I reached out to Tara J. Frank. I asked her if she would be willing to read the book and provide a blurb for it. She did it, and when she did, I asked if she knew anyone else who would be a great person to also leave a quote. She referred me to Kamal Witherspoon, who's the SVP of operations over at Target. We have a call with him tomorrow talking about a blurb for the book. But now also, since I had Tara's quote, I was able to go ask my friend Jonathan Alpert, who is the author of Be Fearless and the Psychotherapist. Like, hey, I got this quote from Tara. Do you mind giving a quote also? And she's like, oh yeah, or Jonathan's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Then we have these two quotes, and then we go up to Tiffany Bova, who's the chief evangelist over at Salesforce, and she's like, yep, you know what, I'm in. So now we got three quotes, and then we go up to Karen June Freeberg, and then she's associate professor of strategic communication over at the University of Louisville. And she's like, you know what? All these people are in, I'm in too. Then we go up to Josh Linkner, who's like a 5 times tech entrepreneur. He's the guy who gets keynotes for like tons and tons of money, probably more than a lot of people make in a year, which is insane. And then he's like, yep, I'm in. Here's my quote. So now we got all these great quotes. So we go up, and then we go and we contact our list. We're like, hey, we got 5 people who are in. Are you in too? Like Jack Fan, who's like the president of Money Crashers, former digital trends manager. He's like, I'm in. Amber Mack, who's the TV host for Bloomberg, she's like, I'm in too. Oliver Luckett, he's a super successful entrepreneur who used to do a lot of things in the music industry. He's like, I'm in. Matt Prince, who's the PR over at Taco Bell, he's like, I'm in. And then there's this huge other list. Amy Cuddy might even be joining in. And Amy Cuddy's got a TED Talk with like 50 million views. Yeah. And what we're doing is we're just taking one success to the other success. And it's something that I like to call success stacking. And that's what chapter 15 of the book's really about. It's how to take one success and lead it to the next success and the next success and the next success. And luckily, I guess we built up enough credibility beforehand, because we've been building our credibility, Ryan for about 3 years, me for about 5 years, going, let's give to the world. And now that we've given so much, we're just like, okay, I guess this is the time to start taking, I guess.
Well, but you put in the time. You really built those relationships, and I heard so many great takeaways within that. First of all, be fearless in going out there and asking. You could have easily shied away from asking people to give you those testimonials. Yeah. And instead, the other key piece I heard in there is you're using those third-party testimonials to really create differentiation and really stand out in the marketplace. And as you said, just being able to stack that success, I think it gives you that momentum too, right?
Yeah, it kind of does. Like, back to a crowdfunding campaign I did in the past that raised $2 million. Like, it was for a TV
Mhm.
show, and inside that TV show, there was a product by a company called Nomad Lane. It's called the Bento Bag, and what they did is they already had an existing company, and they already had a database of customers who bought their other products. Now, in order for a crowdfunding campaign to be successful, what you have to do is on the first day of launch, you have to raise at least 50% of the money that you're looking to raise. So if you're looking to raise like $20,000, for example, you have to make sure you have commitments for $10,000 that very first day, because then the algorithm, the company, they're going to be like, oh, wow, is this really a hot product? And the only way to do that is to, before you even launch anything publicly, go out there and get all those commitments beforehand and reach out to
Mhm.
people so they're buying in onto your successful launch. And once they do, like, we have all these quotes from all these people. Like, once the book comes out, it's going to have like 50, 100 different quotes. And then in October, that's all these people talking about it. And it's like, oh, now the product's out here. People are like, oh my God, all these people have said great things and we don't have access to it. And they're just going to want to continue to buy into that. And the more they see other people start to talk about it, the more they see that chatter, the more they see us going around and sharing what's been happening, I guess the more people who are going to maybe buy the book.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think that leads us into our next conversation and topic too. So we've talked about how to really know your audience, understand what your audience is looking for, how to speak their language. So really tailoring your content to your audience, and then how to go out there and start to find that audience. But I think a big part of that is actually the assets, right, within this product launch. And there are a lot of pieces of content that go into this. Jessica, talk through kind of that checklist for you of what are those important pieces that you're going to be sharing beyond the testimonials that Leonard
Mhm.
just talked about during, maybe walk us through the pre-launch as well as the
Mhm.
launch and the post-launch with those assets.
Yeah, so definitely we already hit on the first points, knowing your audience, knowing your message, which is key. Like, what do you want people to refer you on for, right? So if people are word of mouth sharing your story out, making sure that it's crystal clear. So as people start buzzing about it, it's crystal clear from that point. And then also having some things internally, so you know through the buying process. So what is that going to look like? Like if you had it
Mhm.
mapped out. So once you do go live on, your crowdfunding campaign, or you have your book out, and it's going to be going live, that you already have that whole process mapped out on your website, where they're going for information, what kinds of questions that they're going to be looking for that you should have already on your website, your social media channels set up, easily accessible, that there's somebody kind of there on call, if you will, to be able to answer questions if messages start coming in, that you're searching yourself online and making sure that everything links back to the same place, and that you're checking through that whole online experience from a customer's perspective. What is going to be found right when you're there? And then making sure that you have some of those questions answered in blog posts and videos and any kind of assets that you can have and on your home base. So yes, I know we're talking about social media, and I love social media as much as the next guy or gal on this panel. However, something
Mhm.
that you are creating needs to live outside of that on a home base, and already have the best representation of yourself digitally online. It should be the same representation if they go to your home base, and kind of that's where the transactions happen. I think you've heard it a couple times here today, all of us saying like social media isn't necessarily going to drive in the sales. It's going to build the relationships that then lead into the sales, but the sales happen a lot of times on your website or on that specific page if it's a transactional thing. And that's where, they're opting in. So making sure that you have that full journey from, them discovering you and wanting to know more about you, to the conversion, to then having the content that's feeding into people even after it, because the sale's not done after the sale is done, that you already have thought through all of those elements and have it in place, and have a system in place in order to nurture those people.
Yeah, such great points, because it
Mhm.
is easy for us to get so caught up in the launch that we
Mhm.
forget about the aspect that comes after the
Mhm.
fact of what
Mhm.
are people expecting? How do we continue to answer their questions, maybe their most
Yeah.
frequently asked questions, get them onboarded into that product, instantaneously, so that they are actually seeing the results of your labor. Now, I want to ask,
Mhm.
I AI, a question around that's probably a tough one, but we've all dealt with. What happens when you launch something and wah, 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 not exactly the results you were looking for? Or how do you kind of pull yourself back, rein yourself in, and reassess?
Before I answer this question, can I just kind of go back to some of the answers Jessica mentioned? And she was talking about the importance of like building our home base. And that point is so important. I know like we're talking about social media, so many of us, and I realize how much my product and services are depending on social media. We know like last year I had some issues with LinkedIn. My content was disappearing. And this year, earlier, I think over last month, Facebook had that problem. And every single time when things like those happened, I just realized how important it is to have a list, to have a website so that we can still communicate with our audience. Don't depend so much on social media, even though every single channel is important for us to build that relationship, but don't be so dependent on those things. And so to answer your question, Rebecca, and when things didn't really happen, that is a really tough question. And I think as entrepreneurs, small business owners, we all have those moments. And I think it is important to treat those as learning points and ask people, ask our community, right? And when like you were maybe planning to reach out to 100 people, for example, and then those people, like the number didn't happen, and ask people. And those people who did register for your product or services, why did they do it? And those people who didn't, why not? Right? And experiment with things and ask people and gather their feedback and just like keep trying, keep experimenting with things, and just like don't give up. And I think all of us, we had moments like those. And I personally definitely had moments like that, and just keep improving, keep asking questions, and keep learning and keep serving.
Yeah.
And also,
Yes, great point. Well, and I also think what is so critical, and we mentioned this just before we went on the air, and we've got a question from Stephen around it, is do you have a bullet point, kind of a checklist that you follow from beginning to end so you can go back and say, you know what, I reached out to 100 people and only 20 people responded. And of those, only 5 people purchased, so that it's almost systematic. And you're able to go back and say, you know what, I'm going to do some interviews or reach back out to those people like you were talking about. Do any of you have a checklist like that that you pretty much follow beginning to end for every product launch?
yeah, sorry to just add one more point. And like I frequently schedule video Zoom chat, like with people who purchase my product. Why did you purchase? And like social media doesn't have to be on social media. Schedule face-to-face meetup and talk to people, gather their feedback, and use those feedback to improve and to launch a better product or service next time.
Yes, absolutely. So just constantly pushing those learnings forward and iterating. And I think that's the important aspect of this, which would fall into kind of that checklist, right, Jessica, where you're always learning, always adding something new in, or maybe taking something out that just isn't working.
Absolutely. Like, no matter if it's a product launch or the product's been around for 20 years, you're never done with it. The marketing funnel does not exist anymore, right? I think many people have been talking about it. It's a flywheel approach. Like the better you get with it, the more momentum it's going to have and grow out. But you do have to have a checklist. So again, that goes back to, so yes, I have an internal checklist. So we go through, the planning process, attracting, and how we're going to attract, how we're going to engage, how we're going to delight to make those talkable moments, the experience, and how we're going to measure what's working and what's not, and then go right back to the beginning, refining, deepening down those relationships and the plan, and keep going back through the beginning. And that checklist also goes into, again, mapping out your sales process. Where are people getting hung up? You know, is it that they're not coming back? Is it not that they're not having a conversation with you? You know, and at the beginning, start really measuring the conversations. That's your one metric. Like, how many people do you have talking about your product or service? Regardless if you have a database or not, this is how you get started with it. I see that your question said you don't have a database. That's fine. You know, this is a perfect opportunity for you to really get to know and really set the tone of who do you want in your database, right? And who do you want to start building those relationships with, instead of trying to come at it from an angle of an audience that you already have, that you're kind of coming at them with something else. You know, create what you want. Again, it sounds like a long end game, but I promise you, like, this is going to catch momentum. I love the example of like, that you were sharing, Leonard, about the book launch. And I love another book launch idea, which was Talk Triggers by Jay Bear. I don't know if any of you guys seen like what he did on there, but I thought it was super genius. So one, he had the product, right? He has an audience and he knows his audience. He wrote a book about it, but he did something very strategic. Instead of just sending the samples out to people, he had a planned launch, picked some of his top friends and people that had an audience, and not just sent them the book, but sent them some talk triggers around that thing, because he knew, what are you going to do when you open it? Now, one, he did give instructions, like what he wanted them to do when they got this product, to talk about it. But two, he gave them things that could make it fun and interesting. So things that were around the book. So now you have one, the audience, your plan, your product, your process, and how it's going to be released. But also now you're creating moments to allow people to join in and tell the story for you, what you want. And then, you know, he had it shared on social media. So it goes back to Leonard's point too. All these people are like searching, like, wait, I want this too. Why are people getting these llamas and this crazy stuff that I'm seeing on social media? And it was all around the book launch to create that anticipation of people wanting in and starting the conversations, which that's the key right there. And then going back and refining on your plan.
And I would add to everything that you just said, don't try to go too big right out of the gate, right?
Yeah.
I think that's another mistake a lot of people make, especially if you're just building up your audience, is you know, you're brilliant in your space. You have expertise and a very specific skill set. And you think, I want to create this huge signature product. And instead, you could start much smaller and test the market and start to build up that following, like every single one of you has talked about, where you were building those relationships, building that conversation. So would you also, amongst this panel, agree that it's easier to start small, build that momentum and that conversation, and then stack those additional products onto that?
I would 100% agree. And I see the question by Stephen Cullen, you know, or I'm sorry, CaliCube Pro, what is the autonomy of a social media flywheel for a product launch? So I always use the CARE approach, which is going back to the point of starting small. So first, how am I going to capture attention? Through knowing your audience, knowing, you know, how you're going to stand out amongst other options out there. How are you going to articulate your message? What is your message? How do you build the relationships, and how do you create an experience online for people to witness that happening? So if you plan all that out, that's kind of the relationship marketing flywheel that turns the followers into fans, the clients into, you know, advocates, and your community into collaborators, that will then grow out from there, more people talking about you.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
You go ahead.
So polite.
I know, between the two of you. I go for it.
So I really agree with this point. I think this also goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We really want to know our audience first, and knowing our audience will also help us discover which social media platform they spend the most amount of time on, right? And you don't want to be all over the place, and you want to be really focused. And maybe they are on Instagram, maybe they're on LinkedIn, maybe they're on Facebook. I think that will also help you to be more targeted, to maximize the time and energy you spend, and to really get to know your audience and to serve them better. So yeah, that's just one point I want to add on. Yeah.
So something that I've always done is I've looked at reverse engineering success. So let's say theoretically on the day of launch, you want to sell 10,000 of your products. How are you going to do that? You're going to need buy-in from certain people. You're going to need buy-in from certain industries. So let's say theoretically it's a book. Who are your biggest stakeholders for that book? They should probably be within that book. Now, let's say it's a B2B product because someone mentioned the B2B launch. Let's say your ideal clients in the future are like Cisco, Intel, Intuit, and places like that. Maybe you should reach out to them and get them onboarded early to help you with R&D and testing your product and building out your MVP. You're building your clients into your product because once you build them into your product, guess what? When you launch, it's going to cater to their exact needs. So many people go, oh, you know what? I'm going to build this product and I have no idea if it's even going to be something that my audience wants. And that's usually why a lot of launches don't end up happening in the right way, because it's like, okay, I made this tool, but no one actually needs it. And when people use it, they don't actually know how to use it because it's not built in the way where it's intuitive for them to use it, or it doesn't have the features that they need. So if you're looking at launching a B2B product, for example, one of the things you need to go is go find 2 to 3 different big companies and go say, hey, I'm going to build this thing out for free right now just to get your feedback. And then let's say one of them is Oracle, one of them is IBM, one of them is Cisco. And then now you go out to the other companies and you're like, hey, guess what? These 3 big guys, the 3 biggest tech companies out there, they're backing this. Why don't you get it? And then it just makes it so much easier because you're building that into the product. And then when you think about your product, you have to continue to think about like, who else is going to really support this? Who else is going to go out there and do this? What advocates do I need? What people do I need backing this? So when you build your business, most people build it forward. They're like, okay, product, now let's build it this way, this way, this way, this way. But what if you take it and you went backwards and you start building it backwards? Then you could get to where you want to be for point 1. So when I launched Influence Tree, which is a company that I run with Ryan, what we did is the first day we decided to go out there and launch. We had an article go up in Entrepreneur, one go up in Forbes, and one go up, no, Entrepreneur, Inc., and Fortune. When those 3 links went up, we ended up getting 1,000 clickbacks to our website, and about 100 people said they wanted to buy our course for $99 a month. We didn't have a course at that time. We wanted to test the market to see if people even wanted it. But because 100 people said they wanted it and 1,000 people came to look for what we had, that's why we developed the product. So if you're thinking, I need to go out there and I have no database or anything, you have to go out there and test to see if people actually want your stuff. Go get feedback. Go work with them. You don't need a list. You don't need to know anyone. You could just go out there and make all this stuff from there. That's kind of like how we've all done it, right?
Yeah.
Well, and everything starts from scratch, right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have those relationships.
Definitely. I think that's such a great point, Leonard. And that market validation and like before, all of us, we have a social media presence, we have a community. And before you launch the product, you can share the ideas. Don't worry that other people are going to steal your ideas or things like that. People are going to give you really constructive feedback. And I'm planning to launch something approaching the end of this year. And I openly shared my ideas online. Oh my God. I got hundreds of comments. People are giving me constructive feedback. They were like, send me up. And some people also say, this is not a good idea. I'm not going to do those with those people. You can schedule one-on-one conversation. So that market validation is such a great point. Before you actually spend so much time and energy, you actually know there are people who are willing to pay for this product and service.
Now, with what I said, there's a distinguishing that you need to make. There's feedback from friends and family who always say, no, nothing's going to work. Oh, this is stupid. Don't go and do it. And there's feedback from strangers who are like, oh, wow, this is something I actually need. Or this is something that doesn't work. Don't go ask your friends and family about this because they'll all tell you that your stuff sucks and then they're not going to support you until you're already successful. But go out there and find strangers. No, that's what everyone told me. They're like, you're going to write about your failures? Are you stupid? Are you crazy?
I thought you were going to say, don't tell your mom because she would be like, I love it.
Do you find it interesting with the way we use social media? Most people see my content are kind of people in my space. I don't really have that many friends and family members follow me or like check my social media content anymore. Anyway.
No, my
funny.
don't pay attention
Well,
either.
just based off of, how you're using social media. But I think that's another great point is there's no right or wrong way to use social media to start to put those ideas out there, to kind of churn the waters, get people excited, get people talking about it. Or, Leonard, to your point, find out that this isn't something your audience actually wants. Jessica, from an agency level, I'm certain you've run into this more than once. How do you pivot in that situation?
Yeah, and all good points to all the ideas that are shared and really getting the ideas that are out there. So depending on if you already have a service, a product, a thing, you can, one, start with your best customers and have them test the thing or ask them what they want. Create this like little case study R&D group if you want. We use like Facebook groups for this because we always not only want their feedback, but we also want to keep them engaged with all the things we're doing and keep them kind of super supporters. So definitely you can start there. If you're not and you're starting from a brand new idea, definitely doing what Leonard said and going out and reaching out to some people and kind of reverse engineering. I love that. I think that's super smart. I think the best thing to start with, though, is just the heart of serving first. Before you're asking somebody to do something for you, like, how are you going to show up in a way that's helpful first and kind of lead with that instead of just asking from your community. Yes, it's okay to ask for feedback, but what are you going to give and show? Like even Leonard, you said this too, like we give, and we're pushing this out first. And I know IU do the same thing and Rebecca as well. Like, how can you show up and serve so people get that you're genuine with it and they're wanting to support you and see you succeed, so they're willing to give you that constructive criticism. And it can start from any small thing that you do. Like, for example, for me, I host a conference in Lima called Social Media Week Lima in June. You'll be there, yay. But it all started from hosting s'mores night at Social Media Marketing World. There was like this sea of people, and it was like, oh my God, how could I ever do something like this? And it started out with just creating those smaller moments first, build the relationship, get to know them, support them, and then they're willing to show up and do it. So think of like, how can you create those moments like that within your company now with no matter, I mean, we work with a lot of nonprofit agencies and a lot of grant projects. So it doesn't have to be like a tangible thing. It could be just an idea and buy-in from a new thing that a service that you're trying to push out. But how can you create those intimate moments where people know that you're there to serve, they're willing to give you that feedback, buy-in, and keep them engaged over time, so you can always ask for feedback from them.
Oh, it's kind of just like, it's such a great point. And I love, like, also Leonard mentioned earlier that he has been serving for quite a few years, and Jessica the same. And the past year especially, I got quite a few friends approach me. They were launching their products and services, and guess how many people purchased either their product or service? Very few. For one of my friends, like 0%. And I think that person, because this person never showed up, never served his or her audience at all, and then launched this product. And of course, we were talking about this, right? No, like, trust. There's no trust. People are not going to buy it. And people are like, earlier at the beginning of our conversation, people were asking, what is the fastest way? And I hate to say this, social media is now fast. It is hard work. It takes quite a few months to show up consistently, do the hard work, and serve your audience before you are able to ask for any like money or anything. Yeah.
I think what's hard about this is most people, we've been raised to kind of be transactional. Like we need okay, I do this for you, you do this for me, or you do this for me, I do that for you, or I'm exchanging money, you give me this. And then I guess because so much of society has become transactional, when they go and try to build a business, they try to do that transactional stuff too. And it doesn't fly when you're doing it because so many people are just turned off by it, and no one wants to live that life that way. And then the weirdest thing I see is when people hop into business for the very first time, is they put on this brand new hat, this new business hat, and everything that they do turns into pure business. And it's like they lose all their personality and who they were as a person. And I'm like,
amen.
Why does this happen every single time? What's wrong with you guys? Come on, wake up. Let's bring you back to reality. But the truth is, like, you have to kind of be that person you were before you ran the business, because that's your true authentic self. If you're going out there, hanging out with friends, giving love, sharing your time with others, and doing all the things that you were doing before, and sprinkling in a little business here and there, then people are probably going to like you, trust you, and buy from you. But if you go and shift all your things to just going out there and doing pure business stuff, it's like, I don't want to talk to someone who's talking about their business all day. I want to avoid that person. I want to actively go as far away from that person as possible, because they just keep going out there and talking about it. Like you have to mix it up, and you have to go out there and do things like give back. Like for me, like 5 years, I've given back by writing about my failures so others could avoid their mistakes. I've gone out there and have one-on-one conversations where someone sends me a text log of something this long and I go, oh, here's my advice for you. I've featured people on my radio show or in Inc. magazine. Ryan's done the same, and we've helped so many people, and we've never really asked for anything because we're just like, what's there to really ask for? We don't really want anything. So when it comes time to actually do something that's actually once when I did my TEDx talk over at UC Irvine on why you should let your fears guide you, I got 12 media features on that, and it was listed in like the top 10x of TED Talks by a few different places. But that's because I used it as a formula. Like, let's say you're about to get married. What you want to do is you want to go out there and you want to tell everyone and invite them to your wedding. Then you want to talk about it, hype it up, talk about the new cake you got, all the exciting things that you have going on, but you're still in your personal life too. Then when that wedding happens, you go out there and you do it. You take the pictures, you do the kisses, you do the vows, you exchange the rings. Then you have your little party and that's done. And guess what? After you get married, you put up pictures of your wedding. You're like, oh my God, TBT to back when I got married. You start sharing things after you got married. And if you really think about it, everyone knows how to get married. Everyone knows how to do that exact process. Everyone knows how to share that. So what that means is everyone knows how to market the product, because that's exactly what people are doing, whether or not they realize it or not, as long as you're married. If you're not married, you'll do it soon.
Successful marriages are what we're talking about here.
That's hilarious. Well, and I think you just spoke to one of our great questions, which was, when do you stop promoting, and do you ever stop promoting? And Jessica, you're shaking your head.
So I don't know if I would use the word promoting. I would say you'd never stop serving. And when you keep serving, then others promote it for you because they love it so much. They want to insist that other people, come and try your product or service as well. Like Leonard was saying, like, I'm not asking for anything in return, but every time that you show up to serve or to help someone else succeed, it always comes back tenfold. I'm a firm believer in that. And it's always worked out that way. Like to I's point, of taking on everybody at the beginning. Don't do that. I did that too. It was a really bad idea because everything you're creating is either culture debt or culture credit, and so every time that you can show up to serve, it's like creating this culture credit, and it's going to keep rewarding you time and time again. So that in itself is promoting, I guess, if you will, but it's more just serving. And when you show up and lead by that, it's always going to come back to you.
Yeah, like to that point, I love the saying, when you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want. And I think it's almost a shift in our focus. It's not about us. It's really about serving our audience. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you've all talked about serving your audience, creating conversation, making sure you're showing up consistently, give. What would you say to that person that says, you know what, I've given a lot and I'm tired of giving for free? Is there a point where you're oversharing, or you've shared too much, or you can maybe slow down on how much you're giving?
Well, yeah, if you gave your entire life, like Ryan's given for like the last 3 years, I don't know. He just has this thing where he just keeps giving and he doesn't know how to ask. And I'm like, come on, you have to ask me now. And he just doesn't get it. Like pushing him that way. I'm like, look, you've given so many people all this stuff for 3 years. Go back to them and get your testimonials of how your 313 helped them. Go get your testimonials of how they shaped your life. Go back and go and make your ask. So if you've given and you've never asked for anything in return, you've actually helped these people. They're going to go and endorse you. So when he goes out there and gets his endorsement list, it's going to be like this large because he spent all this time going out there and asking. Right now, there does come a time when you could stop or slow it down, and Ryan's kind of slowing down a little bit because we're focusing more on what we have to do now, just because we're kind of at that phase where we have to go and ask, and we're going to probably make our ask from it's April now to about December, and that's about 10 months, 8 months. I don't know how to do math. But after that time of asking is done, and after that time of promotion is done, we're probably going to stop talking about our book. Like, we're not going to bring it up anymore. We're just going to add it to our bio. Because another thing that happened is, like, a few years ago, people started calling me a personal branding expert. And if you look at how much content I made in the last 2 years, I've only wrote about maybe 10 articles. And people are saying I'm creating all this stuff when it's just other people are interviewing me. So once you get to a point, you don't have to create content anymore. Other people create it around you. So that happens.
Can I say one other point to that? Because I think that's a really good point that you brought up, Rebecca, about stopping. I've also seen people get so deep into the serving and showing up and talking about the thing that they forget to do the work. Where they've actually been on, engaging and getting caught up and all the conversations that they forget to actually have an action and an endpoint and a goal. So I really think that's why it's important to have your checklist of checking back in and feeling the pulse of how things are going. So do you feel like you're at this launch point? Like, what is your launch? Is it, do you have this set as a 12-month plan, a 6-month plan, or what? And when are you measuring your results along the way to see kind of how you're doing and check in? Because I've definitely seen people go to the other extreme, and it looks and feels and is perceived as great because they're showing up and serving, but they're forgetting to go back, and the giving and all that hasn't put any money in their account, So, there is definitely a point to that. So making sure that you do have your process and check in along the while. So it's all a balance thing, right? Knowing when to ask, knowing when to give, and just keep showing up.
Yeah, just to add a point, and you can see signs. Like for me, when people started to ask you, "Hey, can you help me with this? I will pay you." Or what products and service do you have? I want to gain, I want to use you as a coach. I want you to work with me, and people will start asking you once they really trust you enough. And also another sign for me is you start to hear and see the same questions over and over and over to the point that you couldn't help every single person. So the only way to help all of your friends who need this service is to launch some product or service, and so that you can help everyone. And I think, and after you serve your audience enough time, you will be able to see those signs coming to you, and then you will kind of know, okay, it is time for me to actually monetize this.
Well, and I'm going to find this very hard to believe because this hour flew by, but we're almost to the top of the hour. It is crazy. So I'm going to kind of round table this, and we're going to wrap this up. What is out of everything you can think of within a launch, what is the number one piece of advice, the most important thing somebody should be focused on? Jessica?
All of the things. So no, but having a process and knowing it ahead of time, and making sure that you stick to it. So don't get too excited to launch before you're ready, but also don't be so committed to everything being perfect that you don't do anything. Right. So have your process in place and just commit to it and go straight in with, blinders on of only seeing success, and it'll work out.
Good is good enough, right?
Yeah,
Just get it launched.
Yep.
How about you, Leonard?
I hate launches, so be prepared to give up the rest of your life until the product's out there. So it's going to be the worst time of your life, but if it works, it works.
Plan accordingly, right? How about you, I?
Okay, I will end on a more positive.
There's a reason
It's really not that bad, right? Yeah. So kind of fail to plan to fail. And I really think you need to have a plan. And some of my friends, they are like, "Oh, I'm so excited about this thing, and I'm going to launch a product or service tomorrow. It is now going to work," because you really have to do the groundwork to validate your ideas, to test the market. You have to do the homework first. Just because you are really passionate about this, you want to do this tomorrow, it is not going to happen like that. Be patient. This is a long process. It is going to take time and hard work and mistakes and failures, and be prepared for this kind of long journey and have a plan.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect note to end us on. And I would love for everybody watching live, anybody that's watching the recording, to be able to connect with all of you. So why don't you start us off? Where can we find you online?
Yeah, I'm the same everywhere. Addison-zhang, AIADDYSONZHANG.
Perfect. Jessica?
Yeah, you can see all the social handles at jessicaphillips.com, and it's Jessica with a K.
I was going to say, yes. It's Jessica with a K, Rebecca with a K. So I always remember that. And Leonard, how about you?
For me, you could find me at either Leonard Kim or Mr. Leonard Kim, depending on the platform. And my website's, I guess, leonardkim.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again to all of you for joining us here for Social Chat with SEMrush. We will see you back here next month when we're talking about Facebook and the elusive Facebook ads. And we've got 3 fabulous experts that are going to join us and going to really dive into how to structure your ads, how to create an ad that actually converts, and all of the juicy details you've ever wanted to know about that next step, which is putting some paid behind your product. So join us back here. We'll drop the link for that and all of the details on how you can connect with our terrific panelists that were here joining us today. So thank you again to everybody that's live or watching the replay. Look forward to seeing you back here on another Social Chat. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.